Corcyra was an island off the coast of northern Greece in the Ionian Sea across from southern Italy. The Corcyraeans had been allies of the Athenians, but attempts were made to undermine this relation. After a number of complicated events described by Thucydides, the faction urging rebellion against Athens ultimately won out. While the Athenians made attempts to restore the situation, the town was strongly divided and the rebels won great gains. As a result, a situation resembling civil war broke out at Corcyra between those loyal to Athens and those who wished to break away. Thucydides recounts that this same conflict appeared later in many other Greek states, but the one in Corcyra was the first and set a precedent for bloodshed. What Thucydides especially notes about the conflict is the breakdown of the social order. As was the case with the plague in Athens, the struggles in Corcyra led to people abandoning their sacred customs, traditions, and laws. The extremity and desperation of the situation brought out the very worst in people. The historian points out that while the issue was ostensibly about the question of democracy and their relation to Athens, people used this conflict to settle old scores and opportunistically gain some financial advantage. He writes, quote, "Death thus raged in every shape, and as usually happens at such times, there was no length to which violence did not go. Sons were killed by their fathers, and suppliants dragged from the altar or slain upon it." End quote. In the end, personal gain is greater than family loyalty, religious custom, or even the laws of the gods. By saying, "as usually happens at such times," Thucydides implies that this is unfortunately just a part of human nature. Given desperate circumstances, people will behave in this way. He confirms this again explicitly when he writes, quote, "The sufferings which revolution entailed upon the cities were many and terrible, such as have occurred and always will occur as long as the nature of mankind remains the same, though in a severe or milder form and varying in their symptoms according to the variety of the particular cases." End quote. This passage is relevant for Thucydides' account of the purpose of his history that we discussed before. It will be recalled that he said that it was important to research the facts and to give a true and accurate account of what happened in order that people in the future can make use of the information to guide their own actions and policies. This implies that the situations of the past will be similar enough to those in the future that they can serve as the basis for some meaningful comparison. One aspect of this is that as these passages testify, to Thucydides' mind, human nature is a constant. Given that humans are what they are, when they're put in certain situations, one can, to a large degree, predict how they're going to react and behave. So while there will always be some variation between any two situations, there will also be some constants which make it possible to use history to gain some insight into current affairs. Thucydides creates a kind of law of human behavior that when things are stable and everything is going well, then people behave well since their immediate needs are usually met. However, in times of war or revolution, when this is not the case, then the moral character of people sinks to a level that is equivalent to their declining situation. Thucydides portrays the situation in Corcyra as one of extremes. It was impossible to act in a measured and sober manner. Instead, people were compelled to act radically. He writes, "Reckless audacity came to be considered the courage of a loyal ally, prudent hesitation, specious cowardice. Moderation was held to be a cloak for unmanliness, ability to see all sides of a question, inaptness to act on any." End quote. Here we can see again the sign of the breakdown in the deviation from the golden mean. The basic virtues of courage, prudence, and moderation give way to extreme behaviors such as recklessness. This then had a polarizing effect on society with the two competing camps, and as a result, quote, "the moderate part of the citizens perished between the two." What's described is a state in which the correct balance has been lost, and things are teetering now out of control. Thucydides isolates what he takes to be the root of the problem, quote, "the lust for power arising from greed and ambition." He portrays the revolution beginning when some of the richest men of Corcyra were convicted of cutting poles for vines in a designated sacred area. They were convicted and punished with large fines. In order to avoid having to pay the fine, they staged a revolution and murdered their accuser and several others. Thus, the political question of Corcyra's alliance with Athens was only a secondary issue. It was really all about protecting the financial interests of the wealthiest men in the state.